Shalom. My name is Liz McGee. I'm a Torah teacher with the theElectlife ministry, and I would like to invite you to a new class in September. I'm going to be starting Monday, September 16th, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here in the Zoom room, live stream. I'm going to start a class on the keys to the kingdom. Again, Yeshua taught, there's a whole little teaching in there where he authority. And they really were able to demonstrate a much different and higher level spiritual lifestyle. So that would seem to be a really good thing. So this is what I'm going to do real quick. I want to give you a key, because a key is if you're going to study biology, I don't have to give you a key on what a rose is, because you can see a rose. You can see what a rock is, you can see the plant. You don't need a key. But when you move into the spiritual dimensions, which is our Torah is all about, because God is spirit, and 2/3 of us is actually a spiritual being. Let me just say this: you're a body, your soul, and your spirit. Your soul and spirit are spiritual dimensions. Okay, so how do you describe that? Except you use what's called an allegory or a metaphor. And it's already been established what the metaphor means. This is what Moshe received from in his part of his understanding. He did the oral Torah, how you interpret how God is using these Torah words, phrases, letters, and everything he's putting together for him. Okay, this is what I mean. Paul said very clearly, there's only one foundation. It's already established. Okay, so don't try to make stuff up. we just need to go back. This is called going back to the ancient past. Let's go back to the understanding that Yeshua would have had at the time, in the first century, where there was no quote unquote King James Bibles or Christianity. There was nothing there. He was totally teaching his disciples the keys to the kingdom from what he would have had available, which was 100% quote unquote Jewish understanding at the time. Now, that being said, we're going to look at Lamentations 4:1. But before then, we're going to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 5. Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon, and it's a very encrypted little these pithy little sayings that are full of quote unquote wisdom. This is part of what's called the wisdom literature. But sometimes it's hard to understand what he's talking about, because see, he is using the keys to speak about spiritual dimensions. And unless you know that or have that key, that's why you're shut out. You can't apply it or understand it on the level. Okay, so let me give you an example. It says there's a time to cast stones and a time to gather stone. This is a very beautiful little section. Like, for everything there is a season, and there's incredible wisdom and brilliance in that, not only on a physical level, but it's also very keyed, as I will show you, onto deeper spiritual understandings and prophecy, because this is where the level that prophecy is at. So a time to cast stones and a time to gather stones. Well, I guess, yeah, if you want to build a rock wall, you got to gather them. If you want to loosen up your borders and extend your property, you got to dismantle them. But I think it's something got to be much deeper. Okay, so it says here, now there is a commentator. What I do want to say, if you want to study the Old Testament and get its understanding and its context, you should read the commentary of Rashi. Rashi is like the premier Bible commentator for the Old Testament, especially on a very literal, what's it saying, no tricks with the understanding. Okay, and what he says here, he interprets this, and he says that a time to cast stones. What does that mean? Well, he's saying that the stones, and this is something that I've always kind of wondered, what do stones reference? These stones, it says the youths of Israel. This is when are scattered during the destruction of the temple. There's a time that stones get cast away. There's times of exile and dispersion and breaking up, and things move apart. All right, when you cast away, you separate. So that is definitely part of the history of and future history. And then it says the holy stones. He goes on to say in Lamentations. Now it's used again because Scripture's got to interpret Scripture. I got you one here where it talks about gathering stones, casting together, casting stones, away or gathering them. Now in Lamentations chapter 4, verse 1, it says, how dim the gold has become, how changed is the fine gold, is how changed is the fine gold jewelry. Now, what I want to say here is, this is in this verse is what is called a remez. There's a hint here. Is he really talking about gold and gold bracelets? Because he goes on to say, the holy stones are scattered at the head of every street. That's kind of most of the translations. Okay. Now, to what we understand, that the holy stones refers to the holy people that are getting, because they are the stones. And ultimately, this is where we jump. Let me jump real quick to who is the stone of Israel. What are they saying? Who is the ultimate soul of Israel? Mashiach. That's what he's called, the stone. And if stone is equivalent to a soul, all right? And then a stone. Why a stone? Because think of it. What are we? As a soul, we're and with a body, because we're a body, a soul, and a spirit. That is akin to that's the DNA of creation. It's talking. A stone is much more. Many stones build a house, right? And a house can be a person. And so it's this concept. There's a DNA. There's a very small particle, something here that replicates and makes and builds, and the Jewish sages build on that concept over and over again. But it says here, the holy stones are scattered. Now, let me tell you, too, another thing. We get this word stone, but many times you'll see in the translations that they're using stones, and it's gemstones. See, there's common stones, but then there's gemstones. And you'll see a lot of this different levels. So gemstones, very exalted and heavenly and perfect and beautiful and brilliant. So that just want to say there's so much depth to be, but to stick with my point, the holy stones are scattered at the head of every street. What's that talking about? Okay, and street's a bad kind of, it's really at the head of every path, because when you understand the totality, this is the thing. The holy stones, if individually, collectively, souls are like stones, but then I'm made up of a bunch of stones of DNA. You got to see, one of the things is, one analogy, if they'll fit right into the other one. So you can keep moving kind of like up and down. I can go from a very personal level to a large corporate. Isn't he building the body of Christ with members in particular, holy stones in particular, that's going to make this whole. So there is a theme here, and a key is to understand that it's already established what these words refer to. And it's like Yeshua said when he taught on the parable of the seed, that was planted, and two kinds of seed, one that produced thorns and thistles and one that produced good wheat. And then that's all he said. And then back at the ranch, his disciples said, well, what did you mean by that? What's the key? How do we interpret that? And he said, okay, the good seed is the seed my father planted. The bad seed is the seed that the Hasatan planted. So he begins to break it all down so that you can, oh, I get it. Because when you look at a field, yeah, thorns and thistles, I get it. Great fruit, great, I get it. So this is how it works. There's nothing really mysterious about it. It's just that it's already established. And Paul said, this is one of my big things about Christianity. They just make stuff up. The farther and farther we get away from our root system, from true Hebraic Jewish understanding, because they kept it in the house, till the end of the age, we're splintered into 50,000 different or 60,000 different denominations, and everybody's arguing about what these words mean, soul and spirit and salvation and baptism and all these things. Okay, so let me say that this holy stones that are scattered at the head of every path, the holy stones, again, in the context too, Jeremiah the prophet is referring to, it has a real literal context. He's referring to Josiah, the great king, great reformer king, who did great and who had just passed. And it was a part of a lamentation. The holy stones, that life, to that exalted soul of of Josiah, who had done so much to help reform and bring Israel back to the true covenant and relationship with Yahweh that they had. And this is what brought on Lamentations. This is why, and he uses it like that. This is how Jeremiah, who wrote Lamentation, he talks about the holy stones are scattered. All right. And that at the head of every path, all of them at the head of every head of households. Head really means Rosh, means the beginning. So all of these, and Israel had, did have Judah kept a very tight record of their lineages, of their heads of houses and how they came down, the paths, the lineages. Okay. So they're scattered now. They're all sent out there. And another point I just want to make, because this really does help us to understand one of these archetypes of Mashiach in the Torah, again, where he is called, from there is the shepherd. This is a beautiful verse in Genesis 49:24. Because this is a little bit deeper, and if you have ears to hear, if you're at this level, you can understand what I'm saying. The Mashiach that we are following actually is the archetype of Messiah ben Joseph, all right, who is known as the shepherd of Israel. So let me just read Genesis 49:24. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, and it's a Mashiach reference. It's a reference to Messiah. But the reason why he's called the stone of Israel is his soul. All right, he is his soul life is as the shepherd. What is one of the main archetypes that we call Yeshua? Yes, he is king, but he is mostly for us in our relationship. He is our shepherd who is bringing us back in to this fold. And this is why Yeshua says, he says it. He says, I am. In John 10:6, he says, I am the gate for the sheep. This is the whole context. These souls, these holy souls, liken much to sheep. Joshua said, but this is back again to the Messiah, the ultimate stone or soul of all Israel. All right. It says, I am the good shepherd. And he, even Yeshua says in another point, he says, I have other sheep that are not of this fold. So you can only understand that in the context of what I'm talking about, which is called the two houses of Israel. And you have to understand he was working with the northern kingdom and he's working with the southern kingdom, because they were in two different places on two different salvation tracks for the time being. But this idea that is the ultimate stone of Israel and is the ultimate soul, that soul life of Mashiach, that is going to break the backs of the wicked. Okay, ultimately. So to me, this is why the keys are important, and we need to understand and rightly divide the word of truth. That's Judah's great contribution to the world, one of their greatest contributions. And we will all praise Judah. It says, because at great personal peril and sacrifice and, oh my gosh, tribulation and exile, they have kept the Torah for us. They have kept this best wine for last, so we can get these keys, so we can quickly, because I'll tell you what, one of the things why it's important, another reason we're not just gaining head knowledge, this is the level where the prophecies are where you understand the mystery, understand the prophecies and how they're going to come down. And because we're going to go into very fast. That's one of the things about the end times, people. It's a very speedy recovery. It takes or a speedy ending. It might start out, kind of, but man, at the end, it's going to be very climatic. It's going to happen fast. So this is why having the keys, so you can quickly and rightly divide the word of truth. So on that note, I will see you all in the next video. And best of all, come into this class on the keys to the kingdom. Go to theelectlife.org. You'll find the information for signing up and begin this journey with us. It's going to be great. So shalom, shalom.